Hi, I'm Misha Bajaj, a partner at Iridium Coaching and Learning. I've worked for 25 years in various roles in diplomatic missions, as well as running my own marketing and communications business. I'm an ICF PCC, a Marshall Goldsmith Stakeholder Centered Coach, a ProSci certified change management practitioner, and I'm also an international NLP trainer.
Hi, and my name is Nikhil. I have worked for 25 years in various roles in global banking, operations, and finance. I'm a founder and partner at Iridium Coaching and Learning. I'm a business coach and an international NLP trainer on the path of becoming a NLP master trainer.
And the Iridium Conversations is brought to you as an exploration of how neuro-linguistic programming can bring excellence in diverse fields that matter both in the personal and professional realm.
So our aim is to enable our audience to deepen their competence and amplify their impact and effectiveness, leveraging different ideas from NLP that we will bring into these conversations.
So join us in this exciting series of conversations where we geek out on NLP and its relevance in domains that haven't been explored before. Hello and welcome to this next episode of the Iridium Conversations. I'm your host Nisha, and I'm wearing my coach hat, and with me is Nikhil wearing his NLP trainer and master trainer hat. In this series, we've been exploring how NLP can act like a lens and how it can help us deepen our competence and the ability to impact as coaches, impact our clients' world as coaches. Today, we're turning that lens towards a phrase that we use almost all the time and almost never define it clearly. And our topic for today is holding the space in a coaching conversation. Nikhil, I want to start with something that I think will land with a lot of coaches listening. But first of all, welcome back to the podcast.
Yes. Thanks for holding the space.
Precisely, right? We use it all the time. I mean, we use this word as, something we use in our trainings, in supervision, how we talk about our work to our clients. And yet, if you ask 10 different people, 10 different coaches, each one of them is going to define it differently.
That's correct.
So let's get to really understanding what does this phrase even mean? What is actually happening when a coach is holding space?
So I think you're right. It is overstated. It is maybe overused. I don't think it is abused. It is sort of, nicely sort of contextually, people are correct whenever I've heard them using it. However, NLP is about sort of, breaking things down and making them accessible. So I feel that it is an important phrase to be able to sort of understand as a distinction. So if you think about, let's say, you are a coach and I am the client, then this is the manner. Right now we are on Zoom. There are certain things that would have been happening just before you started this call. Similarly for me also. And then let's say if I am your client, I'm thinking about, how do I bring this up, whatever it is that I want to talk to Misha about. So you and I are going through different distinct mental spaces. You and I have come before this conversation and then into this conversation having finished, or maybe there is still something unfinished. There is this whole sort of, logistical element of, can you hear me? Can you see me? All of that that happens when we are meeting electronically. If we were meeting in person, we would just find that, okay, is that chair comfortable or not? Suddenly, you start wondering that actually a coaching conversation is about really a lot of things that have to be, you could say, right in the environment. Right. And if we keep saying it this way, then it might occur as if, this holding of space business is like a logistical nightmare. And sometimes I've seen coaches get annoyed with that also, that, let's say there's some background noise or a doorbell rings or something happens, and that can cause them to think, oh my God, it's disrupting the space that I'm holding right now. Right. Now, I am from Mumbai. So, I like to sort of use an example from there. You've been to Mumbai also, you've seen the local trains, the suburban trains, and they're crowded at peak hours. And yet, whenever I've seen, somebody's sitting there and having a conversation on the phone, selling and buying stocks,
Mm.
somebody's kind of, ensuring that something in their business, how does it get taken care of? They're speaking with someone, boyfriend and girlfriend are standing and having an intimate conversation in the middle of this chaos.
Mm.
And at the same time, somebody may just be sitting there aram se and watching some video,
Mm.
sometimes even not with earphones on.
Mm. Correct.
And yet, what are all of these people doing is they're probably, because in Mumbai space is so less and therefore personal space, probably people have figured out a way of guarding it really well. But in
Mm.
a sense, if you think about it, they're holding that space really well for themselves,
Mm.
right? So this guy is not affected by those two and the others and the rattle and the noise that's happening around them. They're just as if there are some bubbles that are created and they're existing within that bubble, right?
Mm.
So when we think about it like that, holding the space really means staying razor focused on what is right now in front of us.
Okay.
And as a coach, or you could sort of expand this, coaching skills are useful for managers and leaders also. You could expand this to somebody's walked in to get some guidance, somebody's walked in to have an important career conversation. And at that moment, what is right there in front of them deserves offering space.
Mm.
So the conversation will happen in a certain way if I don't get distracted and I'm able to give full high quality attention to this conversation that is going on right now in front of me, right? So that means my ability to momentarily suspend any other forms of distraction, anything else that might detract me from this conversation, is my ability to hold space. And so what's the effect? Sometimes other people say this, right? Hey, you really held the space, so nicely for me. It means they're conveying that they really felt like they were communicating and they were being heard, and whatever it is that they felt like putting on the table, they were able to do that. And that happens when people receive that kind of a high quality attention or high quality listening. In coaching we will say it's a non-judgmental curious space, or it's a place, in NLP we say, staying in wonder. So I think those are things, when a coach brings that into the conversation, it gets picked up as a vibe. We can call it a vibe, by the client. And see, when they're walking into a conversation to talk to us, they're already entangled and thinking about something that is going on. In such a space, the uncluttering or the unentangling happens. And so when the client speaks whatever they have to speak, and this unentangling happens, it can exist because this kind of a space is created, right? So we're really playing an enabling role for our client in this manner. And whether it is showing care, whether it is showing that what they are saying is important, whether it is paying attention to the smallest things that they are mentioning or indicating, those smaller cues give them that sense of there is such a high quality of listening and attention available here that it feels like a bubble has been created for them, and therefore then it feels like somebody held the space. And then that's a good way to sort of think about how space is being held.
I think that's a very interesting way to describe it. To also this kind of makes it so much more clearer, right? Of holding the space, which is almost a space of high quality listening, like you said.
Correct.
And I liked the terms that you used of suspending your world momentarily.
Right.
And paying attention to the smaller cues that the coachee is offering in
Correct.
whatever they're saying.
Correct.
And when we look at both of these things, like suspending our world momentarily and also at the same time looking at or noticing the smaller cues that the client is offering, some of these cues might also be in the shape of silence, right? And that might create a certain form of tension, if I may use that word, within the conversation. And at the same time, as ICF accredited and trained coaches, we are always told embody or listen actively. So active listening is a very, very crucial part of being an ICF coach. So
Yes.
how do what is NLP seeing in a moment where somebody is silent and the silence is becoming a little uncomfortable for the coach? So what is driving the coach really in that moment to break that silence? And probably, what would help the coach to take it just as a cue and allow that to happen in the spirit of holding that space?
Right. I think silence is an important way that we communicate. If you go back to when we were kids, we would know if mom became silent, then she's not being silent, she's really conveying something. Watch out, you're about to cross a line, right? Something like that. So silence, because it's a coaching conversation, doesn't mean the client has to keep speaking, because it's also a conversation that is helping evoke awareness, help the client discover different range of choices. So sometimes the question that is asked may be such that it's making the client pause and think. And silence is a good way, because you've created that kind of a space and you're holding that space. Client feels okay to stop and think, or just check when this question is asked, how am I feeling about it? And because it is that kind of a space, it might then invoke the client to think about something else that they've not really ever considered or even sort of looked at, or perhaps didn't even know that this kind of an option might exist for me, right? So it enables, just staying silent as a coach enables the client to find a space of reflection. You could say, sometimes in that, contrary to being silent, some clients just start speaking out loud. It's different from talking to the coach, because they're speaking out loud to themselves. It's like, they're playing out their internal thoughts, or they sometimes say, oh, maybe I could do this and maybe I could do that. And that is not a response to you. That is just them blurting it out loud and thinking, how does this sound? How does that sound? What about this? What about that? I'm wondering why I'm feeling like this. This is conversation that's going on with themselves. But can you imagine them having this kind of a conversation sitting in an office? Somebody else will say, hey, I think there's something wrong with this person. So that's the safe space that is being provided, that they can be themselves, they can think out loud, they can wonder out loud. And during this time, what's also happening is, because they're diving in internally, a coach will notice unconscious non-verbal cues. So they might nod in a certain way, like there might be a smile that might suddenly come on their face, or they might just look down. And these are important cues to pay attention to, right? You also mentioned about breaking silence, right? And in a space where there is deep inquiry happening, sometimes the client can go non-responsive, because the question has put them so much in inquiry, and the inquiry is not yielding any ideas, that it might just make them feel a certain way in a different. There might be a surge of emotion sometimes, and being silent at this point of time might that the client slips into that, right? So sometimes it's okay that if you notice these non-verbal unconscious cues, you might realize, actually, let me just check in on them right now. And then gently you might ask that, hey, is everything okay? Are you all right with what's going on? Do you want to go and get a sip of water? And just being that, even saying that, now that's not in response to, so what are you realizing right now as you're silent? It's not that, but it's noticing that this silence is different from some other silence. So just like when people speak, we pay attention to tone, and tones mean different. You could say then silence also has different tones. And if we're paying attention to this, then we'll get to know that, okay, right now I think it's better for me to keep quiet. Looks like they're going through some inquiry and discovery, but right now maybe let me sort of break that. Because as being an NLP trained coach, you'll start to notice the sort of being able to distinguish between this pattern and that pattern, and then being able to utilize that, because all of these are patterns in which the client is communicating with us.
So you're saying that you break that pattern when you break the silence?
Yeah, so if I see that the pattern is something which is not helping the client, I might break that pattern. But if I see that the pattern that they're going in and they're looking here and there and making some sounds, then I'll let them be, because maybe that inquiry is yielding them something and letting them go along that path.
Got it. Okay. So, from my perspective, Nikhil, I'm trying to look at this from different angles.
Yes.
Okay? And we looked at holding space. We also looked at the importance of silence and smaller cues that the client is offering.
Right.
And to be able to differentiate between the different kinds of silence. Right. And now I'm looking at it in another angle. And you also mentioned this, that sometimes the client might just be thinking aloud. And sometimes, it happens that the client is just rambling on. I mean, it might not even be about thinking aloud. You ask them one question and it just rambles on to something else.
Correct.
So as a coach, how do you hold space for a client where it seems like, yes, there was a certain direction in which the conversation was supposed to go, because there was a certain agreement with what was to be discussed in that conversation.
Correct.
And yet when the client rambles on, then how do you sort of continue holding space then and not let it become like an open sort of container where you're just losing
garbage
sight of where you're dumping and you don't know where you're going really, and the conversation ends because that's the amount of time that you have for that particular conversation.
Yes.
So as an NLP trained coach, what do you think would be the difference between these two scenarios, holding space or having an open container and you thinking that this is holding space and literally just having no direction in the conversation?
I think the example of a shepherd comes in, right? The shepherd is only one and there are so many sheep and they're supposed to graze in a particular area. And if they're going away somewhere, then the shepherd will kind of and bring them back into the fold with the rest of the sheep. So sometimes holding space could also mean, that like in the earlier question you asked, when do you break the silence, right? So you could then, the opposite of that is this rambling that you mentioned, right? That you could say that, hey, for a moment, just hang on and just wait. And maybe the coach does this, right? That you said this and this is what we had agreed at the beginning. At the moment, what is going on? What do you make sense of that? So just not even so I call this like differentiating between coming across as interfering but knowing when to intervene. So you don't want to interfere or interrupt a flow in which the client is, but if it means that it is going completely off track and you're paying attention to the manner in which the conversation is unfolding, in such a moment it's okay to intervene if it helps the client bring the focus back on originally we had said this, so let's get back on track with respect to that. So that can be one way of looking at it. The other thing you mentioned is that what's the direction, right? Like it's going all over. Now think of it like this, right? That so often it happens, they show it in movies and TV shows also, that husband and wife are driving somewhere and wife is saying this doesn't look like a familiar place, and husband says no, we've been here so many times before, and after a few minutes they both agree that this is not the usual place where we've passed by, and it's only when the husband says that okay fine, I'll ask someone maybe we're gone in the wrong direction, then somebody points out that okay, go here and go there, and then they're able to get back on track. So I think sometimes a conversation need not necessarily, because the client has said in the beginning I would really like to explore this, doesn't necessarily mean that that's the direction in which the conversation will go or has to go or must go, because sometimes in saying it like that, there may still be certain things that need to be unraveled, found out, confusions resolved. That maybe the initial first step has to be that you find out that you're stuck and directionless, and really what you said in the beginning makes sense, but what is being said right now doesn't make sense. And then often it's okay for the client and coach to agree that looks like we're not headed in any direction, or looks like we've hit a dead end or a blank wall. And it's okay to acknowledge that, because again, it's not for the coach to hold on to it that, I am a master and I have to show how good I am at coaching, and nowhere we will be stuck in this conversation. There's no need for a coach to put that kind of pressure on themselves or delude themselves into thinking that they are in that kind of a position. We've got to remember we are also human beings, and so is the other person. So it's okay to say that, part of holding space means, hey, look, I think we've hit a little bit of a dead end. So what do you think we should do now? And to give that autonomy back to the client, to let them explore. And I've had conversations where the client has said, actually, I'm not clear right now what I want to talk about. And instead of going on with that conversation, we stop that conversation there. So sometimes it could just mean that part of holding space means recognizing that right now, that work which can happen in the space can't happen. It could mean that sometimes maybe me as a coach, I'm not ready. Just like the client is not ready. So acknowledging that this is what is happening, let's do like a timeout on this and maybe allow the client some time, maybe they'll get back in the evening or reschedule the call. And that's also something that will mean that they can come back to the space which you are holding and make, good use of that. So resisting won't really serve, because it will make it stronger, and then it becomes like a tricky situation that I'm trying to force something out of the client, but the client is really genuinely feeling that there is no clue that they have, and that can become like a sticky thing. So we have to remember that the client's outcome is their own, and we are there to facilitate discovery, or we are there to help them build greater awareness for themselves. So if it starts looking like it's not going in a direction, check with the client, figure out what is it that you can re-agree in terms of where you want to go from there.
Yeah, I mean, I've had the re-agreement myself a lot of times, where we started with something and then the client again, rambling on to something else, and I found it to be a best practice to just ask them and just check in with them that, initially you had said this, and now you're saying X, Y, and Z. So what would you like to, out of these two, explore further? And then a lot of times these people then would come back to say, oh, actually, I thought I wanted to do that, but really this, And I think it's a good idea to keep some, while we are talking about holding space, to keep some space in the beginning of your session to come to that point where you, actually the client, not even you, knows exactly what they want to explore, rather than just take their first word to be the, direction in which it has to go.
It's important to sort of get clear, right? Because it's not like it's not like some McDonald's burger recipe. I'll get 2 buns out, fry the patty, put this, and in 2 minutes it is ready. Coaching conversations can't be like that, right? They're organic. And so you let the client arrive at that point organically, where they're in a good position to articulate what they're looking for. And sometimes it might feel like they're not, and it's okay to kind of pause there. There is another thing that we say in coaching conversations, my client had aha moments. And I'm not a fan of that. But actually an aha moment from my point of view, a genuine one, would be where the client realizes they don't know what they're looking for. Because that's then beginning of discovery. So realizing that you don't know is also a beginning of discovery.
Yeah. There's another sort of, while we are almost talking about, within this space, what are the different kind of tensions that might be showing up. One very interesting tension almost, I mean, I'm using the word tension, but really one of the interesting things that happens in a coaching space is also when the client says, why don't you tell me what I should do?
Yes.
But you are the coach, you tell me what I should be doing.
Yeah.
So how do you, at that point of time, as if you were an NLP trained coach or even an ICF coach, how do you continue holding space
Yeah.
And continuing the exploration spirit, you take the conversation to
Yeah.
a natural or organic
Yeah.
direction.
I think part of it is also like, if people that are not coaches are listening to this and they're thinking of the word coach and they're thinking we're paying this person and they are the coach and I'm going with this, it might sometimes be a reasonable understanding or thing that they have that I think this person is going to tell me the answers, right? So probably it's also useful to just clarify to everyone that this context in which we're speaking about coaching is really to enable the person to figure out on their own, to restore their sense of agency, so to speak, right? So yeah, I may have that many years of experience and I may actually know the answer, but the consequence of just giving the answer is it will kill the inquiry. And the moment that inquiry is killed, then that you've created somebody who's dependent on you.
Yeah.
Whereas your job as a coach is to facilitate that discovery to happen, right? So the first thing is, if somebody is kind of saying this, I would step back and clarify that and say that, look, here's the way to go. I think, spoken of this presupposition in NLP sometime back also in one of the episodes that, clients really have all the resources within them, as do all of us. And so therefore our role, and especially when somebody is NLP trained, I emphasize that our role is to just help the client discover the resources that they already have or that they're not able to access in this situation. Right? And so that's the first thing about that. The second thing is that when we think of this idea of resistance, that means I'm asking the questions, but it's like defensive kind of responses are coming in, and we experience this in many other places also. If we go to a restaurant with friends and the moment we enter we don't get a good feel of it, that's us feeling resistance, right? If you're asking kids to do something and they don't feel like doing it, they will definitely show the resistance, right? So resistance can be something that the client senses or feels. It is a good sign because in this space that you've created for the client, they're allowing themselves to bring that out. And it's not a resistance about the question that the coach is asking or about the personality of a coach, right? The resistance is about something that is coming up as a realization, whether it's a feeling, whether it's a thought, whether it's a idea that they really don't want to go down that path, but it's making them kind of sit back and check that, oh, this is making it uncomfortable for me. I really didn't want to go down that option. I don't know why this thought is coming. This idea is coming up. I don't know whether it's right for me to think like that or not. These kind of question marks can come. So they may ask, you tell me. I want your validation on this.
Yeah.
And there is room for us to just pause and check that, hey, whatever you're feeling right now, it's okay. But what's the sense that you're getting out of that, right? So the moment this resistance is not fought or countered, but rather is acknowledged, then it disappears. Then the client realizes that, okay, beyond this, what I'm feeling, let me now think of, are there alternate threads to explore? Because maybe it is just this one thread, it is just this one idea or this one choice that's making me feel resistant. But if I continue to figure out as a coach, if I feel now you're feeling resistant about something, I must work it out what this is. Then I've switched from my role of facilitating and holding the space to jumping in and interfering in your world and trying to do something about it on your behalf. That's, again, like I said, that's killing inquiry. That is, taking away your agency. So can I facilitate the conversation in such a way that even when I ask the question about something you're feeling resistant about, in this space, you have the room to say out loud what you feel, and we acknowledge that. And then maybe there is new room that is created to move on from that. So that's the way I think to kind of look at it, that, sometimes it's okay to just pause and think, what's happening right now. And they may convey it. They may not say, I'm resisting this, I'm not liking this, I don't see myself that way, I don't like this version of me. It might come across in any of those forms. And all that is then there is the possibility to explore, okay, which other versions of you could be there. What
I think we did explore that in the last episode when we were working with
identities. Yeah.
So when you say resistance is a good sign, you almost make it sound like daag achhe hain.
Yeah, it is like that, na? See, and we are talking about today, we're talking about holding the space, and it's really like that it's like when we were speaking earlier, I was reminded of the levels of hygiene that might be there in an ICU. That come with whatever ailment you have, we have a way of treating that and helping you recover, right? So as a coach, when you're holding the space, you're saying really it's okay to bring anything that you feel like bringing, anything that you wish to talk about. Yeah, bring it to the table, including resistance, including bitterness, including any other thing that as a coach I might feel uncomfortable, but really that's not directed at me. That's them saying, let me put all of this on the table. So the space is also like, as if you're rearranging a cupboard. It looks very messy. I'm just putting it all down now in one place. Now, when it's all laid out nicely in front of me, I can figure out what's a way of putting it back and reorganizing it. So that's also the effect of, holding the space.
Yeah. And I think it might be a good idea now that we're almost nearing the end of our conversation today on this topic.
Yeah.
To really look at not what's within the space, but almost between two spaces or several spaces that are being held by a coach.
Right.
Okay. So, like you had mentioned in the first question itself, that a lot of times we might be coming from, as a coach, we might be coming from somewhere and, like a difficult conversation or something that hasn't gone our way.
Yes. We're humans too. Yes.
We're humans too. And it might be on our minds, right? And
correct.
And there might be days like that where it is expected by the client that the coach will be in that space or would be able to provide that space. However, the coach might not be in that space to themselves to be able to hold it for anybody else.
Yes.
So in such a scenario, how can NLP help or guide or play a role for a coach to manage or do something about their own internal state so that they can continue holding these spaces sustainably?
Right. I think holding their own state is a totally sort of big topic, but I'll sort of give a few examples of what can happen. So when we are saying holding the space, think about it. There's a structure that is crumbling, and now you've gone and kind of propped yourself under the structure so that it doesn't come crumbling down. Is that holding space? Probably not, because that's at the detriment of the coach as well.
Correct.
So holding space begins with the coach, and therefore it's okay that you've had a horrible last 3-4 hours. But now you're getting ready to be in this conversation, right? And sometimes we think of ourselves as superheroes. That I'm coaching call is about to start, and or if a manager kind of has had a bad meeting, or the leader is severely tired because of lots of travel, and now it's coming up, so I must look something which is in superlative kind of category, and I think that's unnecessary. Because the moment we're sort of pushing that back and saying nothing will affect me, and still whatever is going on in my life, I will sort of make sure that this coaching conversation goes well, there will be a degree of strain that will come in. Now here's the thing about holding the space. If you're holding that space with strain, you're holding a strained space. And if you're holding that space with a degree of pressure or worry that somehow let this conversation get over soon because after this I have to go to something else, then that worry will crop up in that space. Now then that's not the right kind of space where a client will open up easily.
Yeah.
Right. So in a way it becomes like a situation of how you bring yourself is how the client is comfortable bringing themselves in, right? There's a little bit of rapport and resonance at play in this also. often this analogy is used, right? That coaches are very good mirrors. So if it's a dirty mirror, then it'll, to the person looking at the mirror, it'll look like, I think I am not looking nice, right? So as well as, what's the manner in which I bring myself into the conversation? There's this uh, Jackie Chan movie, which is a remake of the older Karate Kid, and they're walking up the mountain, and the disciple sees a lady swing in front of a snake and says, wow, how is that happening? Able to follow the snake's movement so well. And they go to the top of the mountain. There's a temple, or I think there's a holy lake. And then on the way, when they are back, the disciple has a realization that actually the lady is moving and making the snake sway according to her movements, not the other way around. So in a way, the kind of space that we create is what will get reflected, and the client will pick up that, right? Sometimes we say these are energies that we are bringing into the space, right? So I like to look at it like that we are like a magnifying glass, that if we turn it at a correct angle, the rays of the sun will go through, and whatever dry leaves are there, they will catch fire. Now, are we going to be flexible to tilt ourselves like that? Then that means we are creating the right space, right environment for that discovery and awareness to happen. So yeah, I think coaches have to allow themselves that let me just quickly have a glass of water and come. I've had back-to-back calls. Client will be okay with that. Or sometimes the coach might say, it's really been very hectic and I have not had sleep, but just give me 2 minutes and then we can start the conversation. So the coach even saying that will send the signal to the client that if the coach is okay being vulnerable, I think I am completely safe being with this kind of a coach as well, right? Yeah. So it's not trying to show that you're invincible, but it's just being okay about the way you are, acknowledging it, and then bringing yourself ready into the next conversation. That would be a way of the coach holding space for themselves.
Yeah. And I think that's a beautiful place for us to land at, because it positions this concept of holding space as a very active process rather than a passive way of what is expected out of a coach. And then really shaping what becomes possible for the client during that conversation, in that space of the coach.
Yes.
I think that probably is a good time for us to also pause this conversation.
Yes.
So that we can pick up on this last question a little more elaborately in another episode, perhaps. I think this concept of holding space for yourself as a coach deserves as much attention as it does for holding space for your clients.
It does, because a lot of attention goes to what you're going to do when you speak to the client, but not that much attention is given to what do you do with yourself.
Yeah. So I think we should look at that as another topic for another day.
Absolutely should. Yes.
And we could probably pause for this one at the moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Good. So if you're a coach listening in and you want to develop that kind of a steady, flexible, finely tuned presence in your sessions, that's exactly the kind of work that we dive into in our NLP training. Not as training on NLP as a bag of tricks, but as a way of seeing and being with your clients. So Nikhil, thank you so much for your conversation today.
Yes, thank you. And thanks for sort of exploring so much more on space, because yes, in the coaching context, it is about holding space.
Yeah.
But when you think about it, there are so many people that are important for you, and whether you know it or not, there is an expectation that you will hold a certain space for them. So I hope people sort of, make that link as well.
Absolutely. So thank you for listening in and for watching us till the end. And if you'd like to explore this further about our ICF accredited NLP program, you can write to us at letsexplore@iridiumcoaching.com. And we'll see you in the next episode.
Take care.
Take care.
Thanks for tuning into today's episode. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and are taking away a few insights that you can put to practice and start playing with immediately.
And also, we would urge you to spread the word and follow us on LinkedIn to know when the next episode's out. See you next time in the next episode as we continue the quest for coaching excellence. Thank you.